Morning. Today we're going to be installing a new rear bumper on this 2005 Chevy Avalanche from Move Bumpers. This one's got some damage in the rear corner over here, so we're just going to pull the whole thing off and build a new one. First thing you're going to want to do when you pull off the old bumper is to unplug all of the electronics that are going into it, because it's pretty easy to snap those cables as you're pulling it off. Getting up underneath here, there's 6 bolts you have to undo, 2 on the hitch plate. Get you around under here. These 2 in here, and same on the other side. When you're pulling this bumper off, you'll need to take off these 2, which I already have, and also these 2 here on each side. And once you get those off, your bumper should slide right off, and you're left with something like that. Once you get your rear bumper off, you're going to want to lay out your Move bumper on some sort of table so you can see all the different pieces and where they're going to need to go. Now to install the Move bumper on this Chevy Avalanche, if you have a rear tow bar like I do here, you're going to need to take that off. There's 3 bolts, 1, 2, 3 down in there, and then there's also this one right here you're going to need to take off. Same on both sides. Once you get those mounts off, you're going to need to figure out how you want to mount your Move bumper support. I'm going to do it by sliding it inside, so I'm going to need to cut off part of this top edge here. So I'm going to do that now. So the way I'm modifying these, I'm just going to cut along this line and cut this whole upper portion off to make clearance to fit down the frame rail. Once you get the mounting rail to fit in there, you're going to need to modify the mounting holes until they work with the holes that are in the frame of the truck already. So we'll need to modify this one a little bit, this upper one a little bit, and then drill another hole for the back one there. So here's a better look at how I'm opening up those holes. Alright, once you get your holes modified, make sure all of your screw holes work for the bolts that came with the truck. After you get that, you can go ahead and bolt both sides back in and remount your tow hitch if you have that. There are a couple nuts you'll need to remove from these frames that you pulled off. Simply thread in the bolt that you took out, give it a couple whacks with a sledgehammer, and it should pop right out of there. It's just tack welded in a couple spots. Now you're going to want to start tacking your bumper together, mainly just the 3 big wings. The way I'm doing that is using some clamps and magnets. Just make sure your seams look really nice before you put any tacks on there. The reason we need to tack it up is because the gap between the 2 mounting points is too far to mount it to the center portion first, so you got to tack it all together before you can mount it on the car. Once you get her tacked together, you should be able to set her on the frames you mounted and see how it looks. Now before you tack it to those frame rails, you're going to want to tack on these little edge pieces here, the wraparound bits. Because right now, with the length of our frame rails, we've got this much of a gap, so we're going to need to shorten those frame rails that much. Make sure to tack these onto both sides, and then you're going to need to pull off the bumper and cut the frame rails however much you need to suck that into the body of the car there. Once you get those frame rails shortened, you should have a gap, something looking closer to this. This should be fairly flush with the rear door. I'm not too happy with the gap here, but we're going to have to live with it because that's the way the bumper's cut. Can't do anything about it now. So once you get it to where you like it, go ahead and tack it to those frame rails. Once you get your bumper tacked on, you can go ahead and tack on these outside plates, just like so. Hard to show with one hand. Alright, now we got that side panel tacked on. Then you can go ahead and tack on one of these back corner plates, just like so. Lastly, you're going to want to tack in one of these, or these side of the kick plate covers, just like that. Once you get it all tacked up, it should look something like this, and you'll go ahead and repeat the same process for the other side. Once you get it all tacked up, you should have something looking like this. Now you can remove it from the truck. I have clevis mounts and pod light mounts to install still, but I can do that after the fact now that everything's assembled. All right, so we got the bumper pulled off the truck. You can go ahead and weld up all of the different joints fully now. First thing I'm gonna weld is these frame rails, just to make sure those don't shift at all when we're moving this thing around. Once you get your bumper fully welded up, you can start cleaning up the welds. Still got some to do over here. Not a great welder, but get the job done. Before you mount your clevis hooks, you're gonna wanna make sure these welds are all cleaned up because it's gonna be hard to get at those once these are welded on. You can just figure out where you want them. The best place is the best place for you. I'm using a magnet to make sure it's nice and at a nice 45 or 90 degree off of the bumper face. And then I'm just gonna measure and make sure they're both identical on each side. Now that you've got your bumper assembled, you can also go ahead and figure out what you're gonna do for your lights. I'm using some pod lights, flush mount from Big Sky LED. So we're just gonna figure out where we want those. I had to open up the hole a little bit to make these fit. There's just a tiny little bit, and a burr grinder took care of that. So I'm using Sharpie to mark the position of the holes there. We'll center punch them and drill them out. Same for both sides, and you can go ahead and mount those in. Once you get your holes drilled for your light pods, they should look like this. I have yet to do this one. You can see I've already center punched these to drill them out. If you guys are looking for a high quality set of pod lights, go check out Big Sky LED. He's got all sorts of different models and a very competitive price range. Check him out. Now there's a few things you're gonna want to transfer over from the original bumper, namely your license plate lights. So on this there's two on each, or one on each side, and also your spare wheel lower cover thing. You're gonna wanna transfer that into your new bumper as well. To do so, you just wanna copy the pattern onto something and transfer that into the move bumper. You'll need to thin the material around the hole of the move bumper a little bit in order to help the light clip slip in there the same way it did on this bumper. For the license plate light holes, you'll end up with something like this on both sides. Take some measurements, make sure they're nice and even up and down and away from the step plate there, and then drill out the corners and use saws or files or whatever you have to cut out the hole to shape. Alright, so I got those holes cut out for the license plate lights. That's what they look like. The thickness of this plate is thinned down in order for these clips to clip in there the same way they did on the original bumper. Just slides in there, snaps into place. Next up, we got to put the hole in somewhere in here for the spare tire lowering hole thing. Once you get your clevis hooks welded up, it should look something like this. My clevis hooks, I don't know if you can tell, they got a little bit of a slope here, upward slope, so I'm going to go through and probably grind those to have a nice flat surface and then round them over just a little bit so they're not too sharp on the edge. Still got to weld up this other one, but that's what it'll look like once you get them on. And there she is, all ready for paint. I'm going to be using Herculiner bed liner. A couple coats of that. Make sure you really clean the surface well with acetone and some sort of paint prep solution. There's what that hole for the tire lowering access point is. Clevis hooks are all mounted up there. I'm going to pull the license plate lights out before I paint, obviously. And yeah, there you go. And there's the rear bumper with a coat of Herculiner on it. I'll do another coat on the outside, then flip it over, do a coat on the inside, try and make it as rust-proof as possible. And there she is, all finished up, mounted up on the truck. Lights are wired in. I'll show you what those look like in a second here. Bed liner on it, looks great. And there she is with the lights on. I have these wired up so you can flip them on. So they're just on, and also they'll come on with the reverse lights if you switch it to that direction on the rocker switch. Anyway, that's how you do it. Thanks for watching.